Good evening and welcome to the Barre Beat podcast live from ASB Financial Studios and Fly on the Wall Productions. In-house tonight we have Raylene.
Good evening.
And Nicolas Storellicastro,
Hello.
City Manager. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here.
Welcome to the Barre Beat.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Now that you finally.
I know. Finally, after me saying no, I don't want you to come on.
Exactly. That's exactly how it went.
No, we wanted to have you on because of the budget, obviously, which we do this. We did this last year for Steve when we put the budget out there, and so we decided to have you come on.
Yeah.
And the people that are listening, as we go through the budget, if you have questions, just post it in the chat. And Nicolas has his budget, his handy dandy budget binder. So hopefully he'll be able to answer the questions for you. And if not, he will absolutely get back to you, or we'll post it in the comments, something. So with that, Nicolas.
Thank you, Michael. Well, it's great to be here. So we had a budget approved on the last council meeting on the 10th. And it's just want to start off by saying I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of it. We were facing some headwinds. And I would say early on, I said it was bad budget math. And the reason I said that it's because we had things going in the directions you don't want them to go in. So we had some revenues going away and we had some expenses going up. And that's a tough combination. We have contractual obligations through our collective bargaining agreements for our employees. The city faces a lot of the same challenges that a lot of households face. We have to buy fuel. We have cars that our police cars use fuel. The fuel prices impacted our budget too, the way we heat our buildings. And so it was a real challenge. Our healthcare rates went up. Like many other people's did. So these were the types of things we were facing, that just headwinds, I would say, or bad budget math, as I called it. And so walking into the budget, even if we did nothing, we were already looking at, in the 5% range of increases. And the reason I'm really proud of this budget is because we got the expenses down to right around 4%. A projected tax increase below 5%, 4.85, which I think if you see where a lot of other places are right now, I just read, I think Berlin's at 8, and other places started much higher. I don't know where they'll land, but they already started much higher than we did. And we did all that based on confronting that real tough baseline condition that we had to address. So that's why I'm really proud of it. And the staff did a lot of work. It was a really collaborative process with all our department heads. And one of the things we did is we went line by line, and I asked for savings. And we analyzed, scrutinized every line of this budget. We came up with about $290,000 worth of savings to the tax rate, and that was through a combination. Mostly, I think 260,000 of it was through efficiencies, reestimates, cost reductions, eliminating unnecessary things. For example, I'm going to assume I assumed savings in shredding because I think I'm going to shred less than Steve because I don't print as much as Steve. So that was a savings, right? But that's the kind of stuff that you get to when you go through a budget line by line. You ask, what's the shredding budget line? I don't need that. Certainly not that much of it.
So for folks that don't know, Steve was very old school when it came to files.
He was a paper guy.
And he was very much a paper guy. And when you walked into his office, his office was full of papers.
That's why JD loved him.
Yeah.
JD was like, oh my God, it's somebody just like me. Yes. He was so excited when he went to Steve's office.
Yes, it definitely, there would be a huge savings.
Huge savings.
And I'm sure there was like this sound of out of the budget when he left to do that shredding.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is 100% true.
So that's, it's not huge dollar amounts, but that's the kind of stuff that when you go line by line, those are the kinds of savings you can get. So we got $290,000 worth of those savings. 230 of it was in cost reductions, efficiencies, and the 60,000 of it was in revenue raisers, right? So we're going to be a little bit more, we're going to create some new fees. And that this is for things like stormwater connections, things like that, that you're only going to feel them if you're doing something major in the city. Anyhow, so then we went through that process. We scrutinized everything. And that's where we landed where we did, which is with projected 4.85% tax rate increase. And now I've told this to the council, heavy emphasis on projected. That obviously changes. The tax rate actually isn't set till next July. It'll be impacted by things like the grand list assessing and all that. So that's where we are. And 4.03 increase in expenses, which again, you look at the conditions we were in, and I told the staff it was financial jujitsu. It was really great work that they did to get us to that place.
So we do get a question here. A 10-cent tax rate increase is troubling to some if the budget were to fail, which it's not going to. Do we have a plan B? And the question for that actually it actually falls into the hands of council. This budget is the manager's budget per charter. We just are in years past, we have gone through and been more of a, line by line for city council, but this is the manager's budget. And so if it doesn't pass, then it would drop into the council's position.
And it was a well-prepared
then we'll increase
budget.
the percentage up to 20%. So vote yes on the budget.
Yeah. And Michael, I would add to that a lot of our budget is non-discretionary, right? So it's tied to personnel, fringe rates, benefits that are in contracts that, we negotiate those contracts. But we have to live by them as well, right? So 70% of our budget, and you have the chart up there, and I'm rounding up, but it's 2/3 basically, is non-discretionary, and that's not even counting things like debt service, which we're also obligated to pay. So the pie, the light blue pie that we actually have to play with is quite small. So we have. And those things are, again, things like fuel for the police cars, fire trucks, DPW trucks, salt, sand. There's a lot of things in our budget that we can choose to cut, but that would have some real tangible and, frankly, safety implications.
And that would have people screaming too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So those are things that need to be taken care of.
Right.
And 33% of overall budget. I mean, we already know that things are pretty slim to begin with.
Yeah.
So to go any further than that would be, especially when you talk about like union contracts where they have steps and everything else.
Right.
It can escalate pretty quickly.
Right.
Yeah. Nice. So let's go on to a couple like high points on it.
Yeah.
We'll look at the summary of the FY24 budget process.
Yeah, so we had, I thought, a really engaging, thorough process. We started this way back in September. We did a kickoff where we asked the council for some guidelines, parameters about what the priorities were, what should we be looking at while we formulate this budget. And we got at that point broad direction about, looking at 4% or so. And so we ended up a little bit higher than that, but I think that's part of going through the process. We got to the point where there just wasn't more to take away. So we started that then, and then we went through 4 weeks, 4 council meetings worth of individual department reviews where we had our department heads come in. We look at one department at a time and have an opportunity to go through line by line, talk about the high points. And this year, part of that was also talking about the reductions they took. And so every department came in and we showed what the change was year over year. We showed the primary functions of those departments and then where they had adjusted their belts and made some difficult decisions. Then we had December, we had December 6th, we had our partner organizations that we fund. So that's the partnership, Barre Area Development, and the Aldrich Library. They made their budget requests, and then we made a recommendation after hearing what they asked for. And then the December 20th, we had the budget seminar at Alumni Hall. So this was to really, this had been a tradition to do sort of a line by line with the council at Alumni Hall. We switched it from a Saturday to a Tuesday night to do it during a regular council meeting. We had all the department heads present. This was a chance for us to go line by line. We did a little of that, and that led to the 10th where we got to the final product.
And let's dig down on the partners that we have. Specifically, I know that the Barre partnership didn't actually ask for an increase, but you did decide to give them a 3.5% increase, which is, and Tracy was very happy about that, of course. And, as a person, the liaison to the partnership, and I just love the partnership. So
she does great work. Yeah,
she does. And then, of course, we get the Barre Area Development Corp, which they had originally asked 54% or 54.1% as here. But you would put out 15%, and that's an understanding for, the current environment that we're in. And I know that we had that conversation last week, and we ended up putting the additional on the budget.
Right.
Not on the budget. We didn't
on the ballot.
On the ballot. And then, of course, the Aldrich Public Library got 4.5%. Do you want to add anything?
No, I mean, I think that I would just say that these are hard decisions. These are very hard decisions. These organizations do great work. I think, certainly appreciate Tracy sort of negotiating against herself, but I think she's doing great work. It's a real value to the community to have the partnership, and they do a lot of great things that are visible. The beautiful lights that I've heard from so many people. I know Tracy, just integral to that. And Aldrich Library. Also, look, they're a community treasure. It's my kids go to Lego Club, and so they see their friends there. I know what it means to the community, and I think for me also it was important to learn that it's being a small community. The place like the library has a value. It has a value greater than the value I placed on the library in New York City, where there's so many sort of alternatives to education and places for children to learn and grow and have those kinds of opportunities. So we couldn't go as high as the 8. We worked with Lauren to find some areas where we thought there were adjustments to be made. But I value tremendously what they do, because I think for a community like ours, the size of our community, it has tremendous value for many families, and not to mention what they do for the warming, which they have a warming shelter there. So just all around a great place. And then Barre Area Development, I will say MA's been great since she started. Have been in great communication with her. I know she's hit the ground running, and I think she's gonna be a great partner there. The rationale for the 15% versus the 54 is, as I mentioned at the council, a lot of it is math, and we have to. A budget is about making difficult decisions all around, and we made some extremely difficult decisions at the department head level, and so I think it's important to have others make difficult decisions as well. So what we thought was important to fund was the continuation of the executive director's compensation and some strategic planning, which I think MA agrees is important for Barre Area Development. But again, the 15.3 versus 54 doesn't in any way reflect certainly what I believe of the value of Barre Area Development or its future with MA. It's really comes down to another just tough decision.
And regarding Tracy's request, you had sent out information saying that all the partners would be a zero. We wanted a 0% increase, and she took that as a 0% increase. So just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, absolutely. So in our initial budget, proposal, I don't know if with the baseline budget where we started, we zeroed those out as in no growth is where we started. So not to zero, but no growth from last year. Gave them an opportunity to come to the council and make their case, and I think they did. And so I think it's important to we value these things, and it costs money to run them, and I think it's an important investment to make.
All right. Do you want to go to the context, or what would you like to go to next? We've got several slides.
Yeah, we can go through. So I talked a little bit about the big picture. I think we can talk about the context setting if you want, Michael. This is the slide that I've made the council look at this slide just about every week that I've talked about the budget, because I think it's important.
Yes. Will be just a minute. Sorry, that was a previous employee that was on the system.
So this, I've had this in about every budget presentation, and I know it's a lot of lines and bars and graphs, but it's really a story. And I don't think this is unique to Barre. This happened across the country. So when the pandemic hit, panic, we didn't know what were happening. The revenues plummeted everywhere. It was just an unprecedented time for municipalities and everyone. And so what happened was relatively flat budgets. And that's what the blue bars represent, the actual approved budgets since FY20. And you can see just a sort of a flat line there in those first 2 years during the pandemic. The orange line shows what would have happened if the budget had been growing at a predictable 3%, which is, I think, just a placeholder, relatively normal number for a budget to grow based on inflation and just cost of living. And then the gray lines, the gray bars and the gray lines show what would have happened if the budget had been growing at the rate of inflation, right? And so I don't necessarily agree that inflation should always drive a municipal budget's increase. Inflation hits different places. In this particular case, gas prices went up, which, as I mentioned, it does impact municipal governments. And then there were a lot of supply chain inflation-related pressures, which also impacted us because a lot of the things we buy, equipment, parts, were impacted. So I think inflation in this particular case did mean a little bit more to municipal governments. But the point of this slide is that we had a couple of years there where our budget just didn't grow as one might have expected it to grow. That said, the needs of the city didn't change and maybe even grew, right? The streets need paved still. We still have needs for police and fire.
Restriping.
So, right, restriping, everything, right? So the needs don't go away, but the resources did. So now the real point of this slide is that we're building an FY24 budget off of a much smaller base than where we would have been if our budget had been growing even at that orange bar, right? So that if we'd been growing at 3%, our budget today, this year, would have been $1.16 million higher, which means we would have been growing off of that larger amount, and that's just more resources for us to serve the city, right? So that's the point of this slide, is that the pandemic hit hard in so many, many ways. And one of those lasting ways is that we now have this, maybe this gap between the services the cost for the services our city needs versus where our budget is. And clearly growing to catch up to that basis would be a significant increase. But I think it's important to note that the needs of the city didn't go away because of COVID. We just have now, we're $1.16 million short of trying to deal with even what a baseline budget would have looked like had COVID not happened.
That's pretty significant.
It matters, right, because we still have to do the same things we did before, right? That the paving doesn't go away. We still need to hire people in planning and assessing, and all that work we do continues to happen. We just have fewer resources with which to do it.
And, as we talk about the resources, and we can talk about the changes in the baseline budget. Yeah. If you want.
Yeah, so this is part of that bad budget math that we had, right? So this contributed to that bad budget math in many ways. So we had the bad budget math, just to go back to, was basically a rising personnel costs, which are and healthcare costs, which went up with the Green Mountain Health Board increasing by 11%. And then we lost one-time revenue. We're losing the cell tower at the Odd, which was $53,000 a year for us. That's a big deal.
Do you know which provider that was?
Oh, geez. I want to say Sprint.
Note to self, folks. Sprint.
I want to say, I hope I'm right. I'll
Actually,
hear,
they all left us. So.
I'll hear about it if I'm
Right,
wrong.
one at a time. They all left
us.
Yeah.
anyways.
So-
I think Sprint went completely gone
Yeah.
in this area.
Yeah. So that's a huge $53,000 to us is a lot of money in our budget. And then even after we started our budget conversation, we had these other major changes that, were really net negatives, which is we lost $57,000 in ambulance contract billing revenue in FY24. And so that was, we used to do the billing for 3 communities and they paid us to do that. And we're not continuing to do that anymore. We just can't. We lost the staff person who does that.
Who was amazing.
Amazing.
We'll just put that out there.
Yeah.
We miss you, Bonnie. Come back.
And now you also have to hire somebody to do that for here.
Right. And so it's a loss beyond this. But the 57,000 was the revenue that was coming into us that was, free money, basically, right? We had a couple of positive changes, which is, and I want to thank Sue Mintner at Capstone. We have now an agreement to increase the pilot for the Brook Street school, which it had been $5,000 since like the 1980s. And so now we're going to escalate it at 2.5% per year. So that's great. That's a contribution that they're making, and they're a nonprofit. So I'm very appreciative that they were willing to let me in the building to talk about that, even though I told them that was what I was coming in to talk about.
Right.
So
we want your money.
Right. And then a positive change too is that we were notified by the state of Vermont that the pilot payments, the payments in lieu of taxes, pilot payments that they make, we're going to increase. We get notified about this in the mid-year, and so this helps us. We're going to assume that we're going to be at around the same level next year, so that helps the bottom line budget. But those are all things that they mean a lot to Barre, right? So the loss of the 57,000 in revenue from the ambulance billing, the loss of the 53,000 from the cell towers, that's a lot of money for us. And I came from New York, right? I did the education budget, and I had a rule. That budget is $30 billion. And I had a rule. My staff didn't bother me for under $1 million, right? And so
we would have a problem.
We would have a problem here, right? But this is these. Yeah. If New York City lost a cell tower off of a school building, I wouldn't even have learned about it.
Right.
Yeah.
And here, that's a big chunk of money for us. That's a position.
Yeah.
So.
Now that increase, the pilot increase is going to be in perpetuity, correct?
So we assume so. So what we do is we adjust. We have a line item in the budget. We adjust it when we get the actuals from the state, and then we assume based on history that they grow from there. Now, if the state has some sort of, God forbid, catastrophic revenue issue, and they have the ability to lower that, then we would hopefully have time to adjust. But yeah, we assume for the time being that we're growing off of that increased base.
Did you say we were also getting an increase with
Capstone?
Capstone, yeah.
And that's also in perpetuity?
That's in perpetuity, yeah. So we're going to sign an agreement with them to lock that in. They have 2 facilities two buildings in the city that are subject to pilots, and we're going to now they're both going to be at 2.5%. And again, the Brook Street School had not had any increase since the 87. So it'll be a little bit of money, but it's something, right? And over time, it'll be a significant resource for us.
And on top of that, we talk about the local options tax, which I believe Montpelier has it on their ballot. Yep. So that's going to probably pass. Although I don't think we can collect on the... I won't do that during this conversation. I won't make the joke.
I was going to say.
I'll stop.
Do you want me to go get the Nerf gun,
Yeah,
Michael?
You probably should go get the Nerf gun on that one. But the local options tax, which I think it's 30% goes back to the state, which goes back into the pilot. So it could raise.
Right.
We're getting Montpelier money too, along with other money from. But yeah.
Yeah, and that's a huge revenue for us on the capital side. That's huge for us too. That's going to help us. We have so many accumulated capital needs that it's gonna help the bottom line a ton.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. What do you want to talk about next?
Do you want to ask Rosemary's question, maybe?
Oh, yeah, go for it. Why don't you ask?
She says, there are tough decisions. Having opened up for citizen input on ARPA funds, doesn't that put us in a difficult position to those who submitted requests?
I don't think so. So we had 21 requests come in, and I don't know if it's hard to tell if the question's referring to general requests or to the letters of interest. Let me just talk about it broadly. So we started the engagement process in September. We issued a form for letters of interest for people who are interested in projects to submit information about the project, funding for the project, other sources of funding for the project. And so we got 21 total. We did a survey, an online survey, also was able to be done by paper. That launched early November, went through December 9th. And then we did a forum in conjunction with a council meeting on November 15th. And so by the time we did the survey, we had only received, I think, a dozen or so letters of interest. So those are the ones that when I presented to council last week, if you looked at the report, you could see feedback on some of the letters of interest, and those were the ones that were submitted in time for the creation of the survey. Mm-hmm. So I think where my proposal to the council was, we heard two things. We heard two major things through these tools that we put out for feedback. At the forum, Michael, you were there. I think it was great. I mean, everyone was there. I think it was great to have it with council there so that people could hear it directly. It was all about infrastructure. Mm-hmm. Like we had over 40 people there. Many people spoke. It was infrastructure. Mm-hmm. And so that was unequivocal, no doubt about it. Through the survey, we got two very clear messages. One was that people could respond to a list of topics that they thought were their most important priorities. And housing, by and large, was the highest response there. And we got 309 responses. Mm-hmm. Housing was far and away the priority there. And individually, Downstreet's Granite City Apartments at the Ward 5 school was the far and away most popular project as well. And so I think that makes sense, right? It was housing is your most important priority. Yep. There's one housing project. Of course, it's going to get this support. So my proposal to the council on the 10th was we should fund the Downstreet project. That's 9 units. The total cost of that project is 3 point something million. And we're only funding $250,000. It's less than 10% of the total cost of the project. That's what I think ARPA is built for. It's to leverage. We've talked about leveraging ARPA. This is an example of leveraging ARPA. We're gonna contribute to 10% of a project and get 9 housing units out of it. I think that's a win for the city. They've secured all the other funding, so this is no longer even a hypothetical. They're ready to break ground on this. So that was proposal 1. Proposal 2 was we should carve out $200,000 for the very many letters of interest that we got, and see. I think a lot of them have value, and sure, there's value in fixing our infrastructure. There also is value in doing beautification projects, which is what some of the things submitted were. There's value in supporting some of our nonprofits. There's value in supporting some of the historic buildings in the city. That there was I believe and I'm not tipping my hand on the scale, I'm just giving an example. Mm-hmm. One of the projects was for some media upgrades to the old labor hall, right? And so I think there is value to things that help the community, maybe in more indirect ways. So I said, let's set aside $200,000 and let's go through a process where we do sort of like a mini grant for those people who took time to submit those interesting ideas, and the rest of the money, capital plan, infrastructure, and that's to be responsive to what we heard at the forum, and that's going to help us pave. It's going to help us upgrade our facilities. So there's just so many accumulated needs, and we heard loud and clear from the community that we have to tackle it. So my proposal was to throw that into capital, because that was really the takeaway at the forum.
Well, I know that as we discussed the difficulties. We had all the staff there on Tuesday night, made them sit through 2 hours of city council business.
As I like to say to them, they get to sit through 2 hours
They
of
get
it.
to.
They get to.
Right.
I feel bad for them.
So, so is that money that you've set aside for capital, is that going to do anything on the north end as far as the treatment plant and the stench that people are often really upset and concerned about?
Yeah, I mean, that's either going to be either through ARPA funding or through enterprise funds. I mean, we have to take care of that. It's a quality of life issue to me. And I feel about it. I heard from one resident at some point during this that they can't have their kids play outside. And to me, as a parent, that is a dereliction of duty on the city's behalf to not address that. And I think there's certainly been challenges with some of the, I don't think it's an issue of the work that the city staff there did. I think we had some trouble with some work done at the plant. So I want to make sure that that's clear. It's really incumbent upon us to fix that, because quality of life for many of the residents of our city who can't enjoy their decks, like that to me is...
Can't open their windows.
Yeah. Look, I would be incensed, and they're right to be upset about that. They should be upset, and they should continue to keep my feet to the fire on that, because that's you should expect better from the city, and we're going to fix that.
Yeah. Good. So having all the department heads in there, I certainly want to say thank you to them as well. To them, I mean, council gets all the credit for this, but we didn't do anything, and we did nothing. And it was all you and the department heads, and you guys came up with the different adjustments, and I'll let you explain them.
Sure. Yeah, so you're absolutely, Michael, that's the credit well placed. The department heads were absolutely just rock stars in helping create this budget, and and part of it was because I locked them in a room until we did it. But it didn't, they did it, and we asked some real tough questions, and we did it in a collegial, professional way. This is a great group of leaders that we have in the city, and we're really lucky to have them. So we came up with about, and I'm rounding up, but it's about $290,000 in adjustments, which is significant in a $13.7 million budget. That means a lot. And this was, and most of it, the vast majority of this was in cost reductions, efficiencies, and reestimates, right? So this is what happens when you go line by line. This is what happens, like the example I gave of, I'm cutting my shredding budget. This is when people start to prioritize what's really important, what they can do without. This is when we had department heads be really strategic about, just an example, our Director of Public Works, Bill Ahern, came up with the example we could reduce some of our salt budget because it's cyclical, right? And so we buy it in 3-year cycles, and so we can afford to budget less next year because it's one of the down years, right? So these are the kinds of things that I think when we engaged on this budget, we were able to get out of the department heads because we were all, working towards the same goal. I think it was important, and I think we started to feel it in the room that we're working towards one city budget. I think a lot of times in budget making process, you can become siloed, and you start thinking about your department budget. So I'm really proud of the department heads who, gave up things because they understood the needs of their colleagues, right? And so, so that was, $290,000 in efficiencies was just remarkable. The 227 in the reductions, and then the 60,000 in revenues, which is really targeted as well. I mean, I can I think I brought the examples here.
While you're looking that up, I just want to make a comment about the department heads, and our city hall staff is absolutely fantastic and amazing. I'll just give it a plug for them. I've known them for years, and they really are awesome.
This team works really hard. It works really hard with not as much as they need, and so it's a remarkable group of leaders. So the fees that we increase, so some of them, for example, the cannabis license is a small one. It's $200, but we expect to next year. So you count it, right? Every little bit helps. Big things like excavation permits, stormwater connection fees, those aren't going to hit your average resident. But there are things that other communities cost or charge. And so, we should be doing that as well. We had a small increase in the rental registry by $10. And that generates $23,400. And so that hadn't been updated in some time. And so we thought that a modest increase there creates some revenue for us that we thought it was important to do. We're going to assume...
Can we go back to that?
Yeah.
So the rental registry brings in how much again?
Oh, let me pull that up. I have to find my...
It sounded like you said 23, right?
No, the increase.
Oh, the increase.
The increase. Yes.
Oh, okay, because I was...
Yeah, you're doing
I was
some
just
math
doing
there.
some math in my
Yes.
head, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Okay.
No, just the increase.
Just the increase.
Just the
Okay.
increase,
It's
yeah.
like, are we doing $10 per house? I thought it was a little bit more than
No,
that.
the increase is 10, and that generates $23,000.
Yes.
That's something. Pool fees. So we're gonna look at a small base increase. We're gonna look at some resident discounts. We heard, I think that was certainly popular when we discussed with council. And the pool is great. I think it got a lot of activity last year, and so we're looking to grow that as well. A small increase in ice rental fees. And again, what we're trying to do here is not price people out. This is a real delicate balance, right? We don't. My intent is not to run the city on pool fees, right? Kids should be able to go to the pool. People should be able to go to the pool. We can talk about non-resident fees, but we're not building this budget off the backs of people.
And the city does have a lot of programs that aid and
Yes.
assist in that.
Exactly.
They don't turn anybody
Yeah.
Correct.
away.
And, yeah.
If you can do this,
Right.
Yeah.
then that's what you'll be doing. But if you can't, the city does provide many different avenues
Yeah.
and are very clear about that. And they're very well posted and known.
Right.
And yeah.
And we want to be, and this was a big part of the discussion with the staff, we want to be competitive. We know that people can, there's a pool in Montpelier. We want to be able to draw people to our pool. We want people coming to our pool. We know there's a lot of places where people can rent ice skating, hockey rinks. We want them to keep renting at the BOR. So it's a matter of trying to find that right balance, because certainly if we discourage people from renting, then we've failed. And so these are not fees to run the city. These are just fees to be reactive to the fact they haven't been changed, or to be responsive to what other communities are charging. So
I can tell you that if you really want to get some traction on the pool, you need to get yourself a splash pad there. I'm just saying, I'm a big proponent of splash pads. I actually think we should have splash pads throughout the city. That's neither here nor there. From New York, you must be experienced in splash pads, right?
That sounds like a great idea.
Yeah,
that sounds like
see?
a great idea.
Thank
You have a
you.
great spot right
Thank
here
you.
on Main Street. We
Yeah,
can just level
we could
that, make a
level
nice
it.
green
Make a
space, make a
splash
nice
pad
green
there.
space,
Yes,
splash
that would be
pads,
nice. I'd
park
be okay with that.
benches.
I don't know how our DRB would handle that, but they
We'll
approve
figure it
purchase
out.
banks, so it's okay.
We'll figure it out. We can dream.
That's right.
It would look great right next to AR Market. Are you
be.
kidding me?
It would look nice. I do want to circle back on the pool thing and
Sorry.
squirrel. Stephanie is very, very clear that if a kid comes up and they don't have money, we don't want to advertise that.
Right.
We're not advertising that, but if it's a situation where the kid doesn't have money, she does not turn them away. And I know that Renita Marshall Helping Hands has also given money for pool scholarships.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
And I think Rotary has a pool pass at the library. And yet, look, Stephanie is heart of gold. She's the right person to be leading our kids programming. She does the same thing at the Odd for Open Gym, right? We don't turn people away. Again, we don't advertise that broadly, but it's important that we serve.
And it's a process. I mean, it's not like you're just not just anybody's going to say, no, I can't pay you. It's a process, and there are programs, and you will be It's just like anything else that you have to sign up for and kind of be a part of.
I'm gonna put Nicolas on the spot.
Uh-oh.
This is terrifying.
Oh no.
So let me ask you, Nicolas. In New York City, if you didn't have money for the pool, what would happen?
Well, I didn't go to the pools. We went to the beach.
Yeah.
So
You go play in the free splash pads.
yeah, actually, my kids, our neighborhood playground had the splash pad, so we would go there in a pinch.
So you're saying you're all in for the splash pads? Is that what you're telling me?
I'm here committing to being all in for the splash pad.
Oh, that
You
was
heard
a
it here
mistake.
first.
That was a huge mistake. And the minute you tell Stephanie that you said that, she'll be like, I can't believe you said that to Michael. Not Michael. Anybody but Michael. So I was pointing out the fact that we do let folks in.
Yeah.
And it's one of those, it's Barre,
Yeah,
right?
look.
this is a hometown community.
Right.
8,000 people. We
know our
8,400.
neighbors.
Right. We know exactly.
And we, I'm trying to think, last summer, I think I opened the pool up 2 or 3 days for heat advisories, right? So we did free swim, just show up, go in. I think one of the days was during Heritage Fest, where we said it's going to be hot, so go to the pool. No admission price, go cool down, and big days at the pool. Because the goal is to get people to use it and come back, right? If they go, a lot of them will come back.
And really like it. Yeah.
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 And there's been a lot of work to that pool.
Yeah.
And folks should make it up there and take a look.
Yeah. It's a great facility.
Yeah. All right. So, do you want to talk about department head buybacks?
Yeah. So one of the as we were going through this process, we got some. We got at some point some good news too, right? We got the state pilot payment that went up, and I looked at the budget, and my thought was we've gone a little too far. So what I said to the department heads was, look, we're going to put some money back in your departments. I want you as the leaders of your department to come back and tell me where we need to put some money back. And we really did this at their discretion. I gave each of them an amount. We set a floor for each department so that, because some of our departments just don't have anything to cut, right? But we wanted to reinvest in some of our departments that historically just haven't gotten what they needed. And so we said every department gets $1,250 minimum, and then we allocated proportionally across all the others up to $41,000. So we put that back and said, this is your chance to reinvest in your department for the things that you think you're going to be short next year. And look, this list, what the department heads came back with, I was proud, really is the best word for it. This reflects their priorities. And I think this reflects probably the priorities of many of our residents. So the biggest amount, $12,000, went into maintenance, right? And that's maintenance of our buildings, maintenance of our facilities, maintenance of our equipment. And that tells you something. Like that's been short, and that's an easy area to cut. And that's where they wanted to put money back in. Again, look at this one, training and professional development, about improving themselves, improving their staff. And a lot of this is our department heads advocating for their staff to get training, which I think is terrific, because we don't have a bench, really, right? We're really strong leaders at the top, and then we're really thin in the middle, and then we have the folks who are on the front lines, and we don't have that sort of that middle tier. And so we want to get the people that we see potential, and we want to train them. We put some money into IT technology. That was the next batch. And I think also a great thing, how do we serve community better, more efficiently, get ourselves into the 21st century? The city rolled out a payroll system just last summer, right? Before the payroll was done on a notepad and spreadsheets, people called the finance department to get their pay time off balances that was kept in a notebook. Right, like let's get into the 21st century, and this is another way to do it.
It's more sketchy if you want to go back in time and
have
conversations.
Right.
Supplies, right? So supplies, another. This is to, and I think one of the things we did is we let department heads invest in other departments. So one of the things I did, I think, is I put some money back in recreation, because Stephanie had cut, as part of the staff budget Congress had cut some. Like pool equipment, I put that back in, right? So this is that, and then professional services. This is to help us get through our capacity issues. I think some of this was Janet to get her through some of the many hats she wears. She just needs help, right? So again, really proud of the department heads. I think this reflects their priorities, and really even without my direction reflects my priorities. And I think what I hear from a lot of residents and the council.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I know that as we talk about staff and all of that, one of the issues is there's nobody there.
Yeah.
And it's, there's all these openings that have happened since COVID, like nobody wants to work, or
right.
I don't know what's going on. I equate it to like, the older people were like, okay, this is crazy, I'm just retiring. And
well, that's kind of what happened.
Yeah.
They're saying if you really dig deep and you read about it, watch, if you are old like me and you get AARP magazines, you can read that the
what
working.
Do you get there, Raylene?
Whatever, the working population has just aged out, or they decided to age out during the pandemic, and now there's a shortage. And people aren't having the amount of kids that they used to have. I mean, look, even the graduating classes right here at Spalding compared to what they were when I graduated in 1990, which, by the way, was way better than your year, Michael. But
I don't think so, but that's okay.
There's a huge difference in getting people in
I'll have
here.
Gina Galfetti to come down here and smack you around a little bit.
The other thing that's changed is that when I was coming out of college and getting into the workforce, a state job, a city job, they were hard to get because they were the gold standard.
Yep.
And you got in, you stayed for your 30 years, you got a
Yep.
heck of a pension. And that's not the big draw anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like people are not the pension used to be like the big sell for public service job. You were taking a hit on the salary, but you knew you worked for 30 years, you were going to be golden. And that's, people don't care about that piece anymore. So that's taking a big recruitment tool away from us.
Mm-hmm.
No, I agree. We talk about the company watches, right?
Yeah.
Which, as a side note, this is a company watch. National Life gave it to me. Everybody got it, so nobody. I wasn't special or anything. But yeah, I mean the you see it at every place.
Yeah.
People, they come in for a year, 2 years, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
I'm like, I have a personal belief that if you haven't been here for 2 years, I don't remember your name. I don't even try. Because it's legitimate. And how many, just out of curiosity, somebody asked how many positions are actually open in the city right now?
Oh gosh. Well, I would say, let's say, guess 8 that I'm firmly aware of. I mean, it varies. I think it's around 8 right now. Yeah.
But as he just announced a couple of weeks, I think it was 2 weeks ago, you recognized a lot of people that have been here a long time.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know a couple of those people that are planning to retire very soon. Yeah. And so then there's more positions.
Yeah.
And
which causes a problem on the other, for that.
Yeah.
And it's not like, and a lot of people are like, well, why haven't you filled them? And we just discussed it. Nobody's there. And I actually called you, was it today or yesterday, about, can you do temp service? And you were like,
they don't have
they
people
don't
either.
have people either.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, and it's hard. We just don't have the same tools to compete as the private sector, right? And this is not, so I faced the same issue in New York when the bus company, we were struggling, as everyone is struggling to hire bus drivers. And this is, not a knock on Walmart, but we were losing bus drivers to Walmart, right? Because they could pay more than we could. And it's better hours, right? Like they don't have to get up at 3 a.m. to come drive their route in New York City. But we have the same issue here, right? That we just can't, it's easier for the private sector to be more responsive to the wage issues, right? So Michael, we got an email from a resident the other day talking about the salaries, right? And we have to keep pace with salaries. One is because our employees also feel the effects of inflation that everyone else does, but from another, we have to compete, right? And this is not a hypothetical anymore. We lose staff regularly to the private sector, and it's for many, the salary is too much to give up for some of them, and what we were talking about earlier, that the pension isn't that same pull for them to stay in their job anymore. So we have to find a way to be, what's going to attract people to come to Barre. It's going to be a combination of things, but the salaries can't be this bad boogeyman, because that's what we need. We are a people-run organization, right? We have police officers, firefighters, people who work at DPW, people work at permitting office, clerk's office, and the people who support us administratively. We are a people company, right? Like, that's what we depend on. We just have to find a way to,
and then we have to
get them to come.
Find a way to house new people,
right?
Which we're also having a really hard time with.
Right.
We found that out just trying to hire teachers.
Right.
This year. I mean, we were trying to help that family here on Aired Out that was it was a new teacher. One was teaching at Barre City, I believe, and the other went to Twinfield. They had 3 kids, and they were living in their car at one of the campgrounds in Groton. Car and lean-to.
So I get into trouble when I start riffing. Anytime I go off a script, that's when I get into trouble. But we're talking about that they don't care about the pension anymore. Any consideration with this, speaking with the unions about, hey, we can do something different that's not awesome benefits that we have. I mean, the health benefits that the city offers is, I'm pretty confident, better than what I got. My insurance is cheaper.
Right.
For not health insurance, but life insurance is cheaper. But that's because I work for an insurance company.
Right.
But is there any possibility of maybe having 2 different tiers where one is focused mainly on salary and not those benefits? Because I don't know. I hate unions, so I'll just be very upfront. That's where I stand. I love the people in the union. Absolutely hate the union. Well, do you understand what I'm saying?
I hear what you're saying. Yeah. I mean, I think that all sorts of ideas have to be on the table, right? I think that we just have to be at the point where we have to be willing to consider everything, and even I would hope that our unions would consider my ideas, and I would consider theirs, right? Because I think they benefit from having members too, and I'm not saying in the Craven we get a union dues argument. I'm saying a lot of our union staff have to do more because we have fewer employees, right? So we're pushing them harder. They're taking on more work, and so they benefit in more ways than one if we're fully staffed, right? So I think that we're at a point where, and I've made this point to our department heads multiple times with Rick on the recruiting. We just have to be open to everything, and we know that the perfect assessor is not going to walk in the door. Yeah. Right. It's been vacant for 2 years, I think now. They're not going to walk in the door. So we have to go to plan B, C, D, E, whatever it is, and train someone, find someone with the right soft skills, someone who wants to grow with us. Yeah. Because we can keep waiting forever, and they're just not walking it.
So I've made that comment before about training, because in the state of Vermont, state statute requires, I think it's called a lister.
Yeah.
And they don't actually have to have the assessing degree. I don't know anything about it, but you can off the street do that job according to state statute. I believe you can double check that one, but it would not be. I'm again full proponent, full supportive of raising the people up that you have. So that's really cool to hear you say that, because it almost sounded like if you want an assessor job, we'll train you how to do it.
Right.
And force you to stay, because we have a no compete clause, right?
Right.
No compete clause for 10 years.
So another interesting thing is I'm trying to think of the county that's doing it, but there's a county that's advertising for a regional assessor, right? So we could get away with not having a full-time assessor. I don't think Montpelier has a full-time assessor. I think he does it part-time over there. But shared services is the hardest thing to do in government. There is nothing harder than shared or regional services in government, period.
Really hard up here in Vermont.
Very hard.
Do not like sharing with each other. We get a very myself, I'll take care of it kind of issue. So yeah, I can completely.
But if there is a place that is perfect for shared regional services, it is a state like Vermont, and a position like assessor, where you could get away with we could share one with. I don't know if Berlin has one or not, but we could share one with Berlin, right? I don't know if the town has one. We could share one with the town.
We have shared it with the town before. It did not go well.
So, I'll give anything a shot.
Why am I not shocked?
Well, in defense, it wasn't like, a problem with the city versus town issue. It was just the person, it just didn't work out well.
Right.
So,
but this is, I'll be interested. I'm going to be following, and I can't remember the name of the county, but I'm going to be following to see if they're successful, because the other thing is, if we the assessors now can basically ask for whatever they want salary wise. We can't afford it, but if we're pulling our money with 2, 3, 4 other communities, then we're not busting our budget. We're all getting the service we need, and the assessor's doing pretty well for themselves too, right? So everyone wins. But I love the idea of shared services. I wish it wasn't so hard to do, but it's the, what is it, third or fourth rail? I can't remember, but it's the bad rail of government, right? It just, no one wants to do it.
No, it's true. Just someone did ask, what is the average benefits for a benefits cost package or package
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's hard. It's a hard number to put one specific number to, because we have different unions and,
right.
And so they're different based on different unions. Let's see if I have anything that approximates that. I mean, I can get that, Michael, to you.
No, that's
tomorrow.
fine.
I don't have it now.
That's fine. I just didn't know if it was like $15,000-$20,000.
I hate to put a guess on it, because I know it.
And it also depends on age and
and whether you have a family plan,
how long you've been. Yeah.
Don't worry, Josh. We won't share. It's okay.
Yeah.
I don't think I have it broken out in a place where I can do a quick
that's fine.
calculation of it. But
that's fine.
Yeah.
Nice.
There are a lot of variables to that.
Right.
Right. All right. Well, let's see here. So let's do the final summary where we are today. Does that sound good?
Where we are today, yeah. So we are.
We're in a good damn place.
We're in a good place. Very good place. Yeah. So we're at 4.03 increase in expenses. So this is the budget before there were 2 organizations that got added: Washington County Mental Health and People's Health and Wellness.
Yes.
Yep.
So I think it went up slightly after that. It's like 4.05, but I'm talking about like
5.05.
4.05 in terms of expenses.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry.
So I'm thinking about like city budget, right? We're at 4.03, which again, I think is, given the conditions of where we started, is miraculous. And then the projected tax rate is 4.85%. And again, projected, right? Like this will change. We'll set this in July. It'll change based on the grand list, what the grand list is set at. But feel good about that. I mean, I think, again, because of where we started, and I think just you look around to see where other towns are. And I don't know where they'll land, but where they certainly started was way north of that. And so it's responsible. It's a budget. The other thing is, I understand the pressure individuals have and homeowners have. Look, my wife, the first thing she did was start calculating what our tax rate's going to be next year, right? So I get it. I have to pay these taxes too. That said, look, when I hear about residents, is not that we're doing too much plowing or street cleaning or sidewalk projects or paving projects or pothole repair. I hear that we need more of that, and those things take time and money, right? It takes equipment, it takes staff time to do it. It requires sometimes I have to do it off the clock because it's, sort of like this project we had, this leak we had on Main Street. They were working into the night to fix, right? So these are the things that, they come in to plow early in the morning, right? So these are the things that I hear we need. So, my sense is that this budget is going to help us. It's responsible, but it helps us protect these key services that certainly I hear people want. And it also, I think, is going to help us, start to do we've tried to hold the line on some of the maintenance lines, budget lines. I tried to protect those because we should have facilities that are that are great and beautiful. It's okay to have nice and beautiful public facilities. Like, that is an okay thing to get used to. And so making sure that the audit is in good shape, making sure that our parks are beautiful and the trash is clean and all that. Those are all good things to have. And so we've tried to protect those really key services and tried to find the savings, almost $300,000 worth of them, in the places where they're not going to impact the critical services that people rely on.
Nice. Well, I guess the next question would be, what does that mean for a homeowner?
Yeah. So we have the projected. So for a $125,000 home, this means about $10.35 per month, or about $124 a year. For a $150,000 home, it means about $12.43 increase a month, or an $149.10 increase over the year. And on a $200,000 home, it means about a $16.57 increase per month, or $198.80 per year.
I have old numbers.
You do?
I do. I quoted 1640.
Oh,
42.
this might. You know what? This might be the. This probably includes the Washington County Mental Health and the
development review.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or not development review.
People's
Wellness.
Yep.
Okay. Wow. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you. It was great to be here.
And for those that are watching, share the show so that people can learn about the budget and why they should vote for it. We're moving in a great direction, and we didn't even talk about how the Barre Auditorium is going to be getting air conditioning soon.
How great, right?
I know.
Yes.
We can just do my office. No, that'll be great.
Yeah.
City Council Chambers.
City Council Chambers first.
Yes.
So you when I first started, we had these awful chairs, City Council, and believe me, the chairs that we have aren't any better, not much better. But the other ones were even worse.
Yeah.
And it just, we just don't have like really expensive stuff. So
Yeah, and
it goes to show our frugalness.
yeah, but it's I think it's also okay to have nice things. We're not gonna splurge and throw money away, but it is okay to have getting into this idea that it's okay to have nice public facilities. People come into City Hall, they're coming to do business there. It's okay for that to look nice, and people come to council chambers to see their government in action. It should be a comfortable place to sit. This is not to say that we splurge and throw money away, but it is also okay to have it's a good place for people to work. We were talking about the recruitment. This is one way to get people. If you have a nice place to work where you're valued and appreciated, and you have a decent facility to come show up to every day, like, people like that. Yeah. So. Yeah.
Well, I do know we're getting some new equipment.
Audio, right?
Some new audio
equipment. Yeah. We're going to have speakers in the room so that people in the very back can hear, and hopefully it'll also resolve the Zoom listening issues as well.
Yeah, that's really frustrating.
It is. And as someone who had to listen
Yes.
into some of those remotely, believe me, that's why I speak into the mic every time, because
Yes, you do a good job, and
Yeah.
and there are a few of you that
Yeah.
do
Well, doing
really
this,
good. Carol is amazing.
yeah.
Tom, Nicholas, you if you have to speak, but because you know better, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think eat the mic,
Yeah,
as
exactly.
JD says.
Right. Put that in your mouth. Yep.
Yeah, that'll be nice. Sadly, we still got the owl. I hate the
Yeah.
owl.
Yeah.
Just get a couple Mevos.
I don't know what those
Baby
are, but
steps.
They're Mevo. They're a little camera that like follows the speaker.
Oh, okay.
You know, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
It's terrible. I hate
Yeah.
the owl.
Yeah.
It's like a bane of my existence. And it goes like around, and you're like, what
I
is
met
it?
you first on the L. I remember during my interview that you were remote, and I remember it was awkward because I kept looking back because the screen was behind me, and then I could see the back of my head. I'm like, I should
What
just
the
talk to
hell
that
is
thing.
going on? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was remote, so that must have mean that we were still requiring masks at City Hall.
No,
Which-
because I didn't have one. Did you have COVID?
Oh, I might have had
It's May.
COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Late
Did
May.
I have COVID in May? I can't remember.
I don't remember when you got it, actually.
Well, either that or I had a cough, and you know when you had a cough, you got to check. So anyway,
Right.
I don't know, or I just didn't want to come in. It's also possible.
Oh,
But-
gosh.
Anyway, well, thank you so very much for
Thank
coming
you, Michael.
down.
This was
Yes.
great. And Raylene, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
anytime
you.
you want to come down,
Yeah.
you
Yes.
always have a chair that you can come and sit in. So, but thank you for coming on the Barry Beat, and of course, Raylene, thank you for being here.
Of course.
For everybody that's watching, want to say thank you for watching the Barry Beat podcast live from ASB Financial Studios and Fly on the Wall Productions. I hope you have a lovely evening, and we'll see you next week at 8 p.m.